One of my favorite aspects about the One Piece world is the fact that everything is constantly moving. Whether it's Iceberg and his little secretary girl, or whether it's Akainu becoming the fleet admiral, it doesn't matter how insignificant, things are always changing in the One Piece world, and that's what I think makes it feel so alive. And there's no better example of this as the positions changing within the world of One Piece. The warlords getting switched out to have someone new, the admirals getting new entries after Akainu became the fleet admiral and Aokiji left the Marines, or the Yonko being re-established as Luffy and Buggy after Big Mom and Kaido. But there are some characters who seem to be very cemented in these positions and don't have that same drive. The world treats them as these unstoppable icons of what the world is meant to be, when in reality we know that Luffy always changes whoever he comes up against, either to be re-energized or to just be completely fallen off and irrelevant. But there are three characters in particular that I'm really curious to see how Oda develops. The three admirals that we're currently dealing with. Obviously, Akainu and Aokiji are going on their own epic endeavors right now, being the fleet admiral and a member of Blackbeard's crew respectively. They already are filled with motivation and drive, without a doubt. But characters like Kizaru, Fujitora, and Greenbull really have me curious as to what Oda's going to do with them. If you're enjoying the video so far, please consider subscribing to the channel. There's a significant percentage of my viewers who aren't subscribed, so it would really mean a lot if you considered supporting the channel. Greenbull and Fujitora, in my opinion, have a lot of drive. Greenbull obviously wants the admiration of Akainu and the respect, and although Greenbull is a despicable piece of crap, I do genuinely think he has the drive to actually do a lot of the stuff he chooses to do. He's just simply not as strong as a lot of these other heavy hitters. Another reason why I think this is a difficult task for Greenbull is because Akainu doesn't seem like a character that would be easily satisfied with anything until the job is completely done. Greenbull trying to constantly one up and be something worthwhile to Akainu makes me think that there could be some sort of interesting connection Oda could build upon that, eating Akainu up inside that he can't do that. Because of Greenbull's overenthusiasm to seem as worthwhile to Akainu, it gives me the impression that he's actually a very naive character, not knowing much about the world. Yet at the exact same time, he says the most heinous and deplorable stuff in the entire series. What exactly made Greenbull want to be this way? Was there something about Akainu's very strict and absolute mindset that inspired him to be who he is now? And I think that Oda could do a lot with this flashback, especially with Greenbull's super edgy tattoo, which could allude to some craziness in his backstory. I think there's a lot here. Fujitora, in my opinion, is the strongest admiral we currently have. His drive knows no bounds. He was also the first admiral Luffy was determined to actually fight, and most importantly, Fujitora actually made a change in the world, showing that the warlords could be disbanded and were disbanded, making sure that his drive actually led to something. He's seen the horrors of what the warlords can do when they're left untouched. He not only has words to say some stuff, but he actually has the fuel to back it up and actually make a huge change in the world. Fujitora constantly arguing with Akainu is also another reason why I personally think he is worthy of having as much respect as Kizaru. Undoubtedly, I think one of the most interesting things about Fujitora is his backstory. Why exactly did Fujitora cut his eyes? What did he see that was so horrible that he felt as though he didn't have any reason to see the world ever again? The world was forever tainted for him because of one specific event? This event must have been completely crazy, and I personally think Fujitora is the person who used his position as admiral the best. Because of this position, he was able to push an agenda that he wanted to see for his entire life, and he's seen the horrors of what these warlords have done to not just Alabasta, but Dressrosa as well, with him literally being in the arc. And I honestly think this is a really great way to bring up Blackbeard, using his position as a warlord to get what he wanted. Blackbeard changed the world by playing the system, and Fujitora did just the same. But instead of changing it for the worse for most people, he changed it for the better. Fujitora is a clear example of Zatoichi, a blind samurai who's able to save random villages from vandals in order to ensure that people are able to live how they want. The vandals in this case just being the warlords of the sea. Fujitora, in my opinion, is the most just of all the Marines in the entire series, and it's fitting that justice is blind. But Kizaru is really interesting in my opinion, because he honestly doesn't have any drive. He's a cog in the machine. He tries to keep things in order as much as possible, constantly doing whatever Akainu wants him to do and not stepping out of line. What exactly is Kizaru's motivation? Especially now that we see Kizaru really struggling with his orders on Egghead. Is he going to change in some way? I wanted to speculate on some of the things I think Kizaru will do in the story going forward, because I think there's a lot of potential for his character. Now, do I personally think that Kizaru is going to switch sides like a lot of people speculate? No. Kizaru is very dead set on this cog in the machine mentality. He has to be the person who follows orders, because if Kizaru did leave the Marines, everything would fall into complete chaos. And I think that's pretty accurate. Fujitora has the possibility of leaving the Marines, and Kuzan already left the Marines. And I think that Kizaru is really struggling inside right now, but because of his determination to stay in the Marines and to keep everything completely as it was, he's just becoming this role of Admiral and removing his humanity from the situation. When it comes to the Marines, I respect. Their humanity is what makes them so great. Kizaru is trying to distance himself from what he actually wants to do in order to enact the will of others. I don't think he's going to join Luffy. I don't think he's going to do anything really crazy, because I think he's another example of a character that's too far gone. He's not like Greenbull, where he's naive. If anything, he's the exact opposite. He's so jaded, which is why in Egghead, when he is in the center of the action, not just literally with him being a super high tier, but emotionally, I think there's a lot of potential with him to have some crazy reveals this arc about more of his backstory. Why did he choose to become a Marine in the first place? What led Kizaru to have that ambition to become an Admiral if he was seemingly going to drop it and just cement himself into that role? And is Luffy going to spark some life into Kizaru after their fight in this arc? And I know what you might be thinking. This thumbnail has Fujitora above Kizaru, and yes, as I said earlier, I do genuinely believe that Fujitora is stronger. I know you guys might not believe that because of the birdcage stuff. Fujitora's ambition to push himself forward and the world forward into what he wants it to be proves, in my opinion, that he is willing to go beyond the role of Admiral and be stronger through what he's been able to achieve, not just in the world itself, but through his strength as well. Fujitora is meant to be the second arrival of an Aokiji-esque figure in the Marines for Akainu to butt heads with Fujitora, who is on a lesser level, getting Akainu to really be frustrated with him constantly. Kizaru is cementing into this role and basically stagnating. Fujitora has more of the ambition, the drive, and in the world of One Piece, drive is strength, but they're not too far off, don't get me wrong. I hope you enjoyed this type of video. I wanted to try and do something a bit new where I not only talked about what I think is going to happen in the story, but talk about why I love this story so much. As I said at the beginning, Oda's world building is something I really admire, and the characters are what make the world feel so alive. Talking about these characters, the Admirals, who are a pretty huge deal in the grand scheme of the story, I thought would be really fun. I think that Greenbull, shockingly, was probably my favorite, even though Fujitora is my favorite of the three. That's going to be it for me. Hope you enjoyed, take care, and have a good one.